Yo, what is poppin', my 420 army? It is your boy, the mighty Liam 420, and we're here with another film breakdown. Yes, I'm finally doing it. Doing the last of my top three favorite Christmas films. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, which I'm pretty sure this is also another classic that a lot of people know about. Yeah, some people also say they really like Home Alone, but I've only seen the first Home Alone. Might have to rewatch it, but yeah, this film is like totally how you spend Christmas with family. Really great. Even though it's not actually family friendly, I'd say probably a 12 and up rating. Just like this channel, so technically we have an adult film on the channel now. Yay. Elf, kind of, or other Christmas is for kids, but yeah. Basically, I'll explain how you could easily do this as like, what this is how a typical family Christmas should go. How I stereotype it. So basically, aside from like the animated intro that we see of Santa trying to get into the Griswold house, you skip past that. That was probably just like their way of showing the opening titles, kind of like a unique style, similar to similar to Monsters Inc. Like kind of like the opening title that Monsters Inc. did, and or any other films I can't really think of on the top of my head. But then we drive to Clark Griswold, played by Chevy Chase, who's driving an old station wagon with his wife Ellen. Hold on a sec. I'm gonna check to see who plays. Oh, Beverly D'Angelo is his wife. So then, alongside their kids, Audrey, played by Juliette Lewis, and Russ, played by Johnny Galecki, who most people probably know as Leonard from The Big Bang Theory. But he was a lot younger in this film because obviously it came out in 1989 and Big Bang Theory first came out in 2007. So, yeah, either way, they're gonna go out to get a tree, like actually cut down, like literally go to the middle of the woods and cut down a tree. It's like I've never done this myself, but let me know in the comments if you've ever gone out to the woods and cut down a tree, because I usually stick to like the pre-handmade ones. Well, I don't buy my trees; my parents do, because I still live with my parents. But either way, they're looking for the tree, and then these jackasses in a blue pickup truck show up and start harassing them. I don't know if it was because Clark stuck up his middle finger at them, or it's because those people are just cunts in general. Literally just throwing out nails, which is supposed to be like a spike strip, so Clark tries to drive around them, and this continues until a semi truck carrying logs appears and they drive underneath it. And they never really reveal what happened to the jackasses after this, but then they eventually reach the tree lot, or so. It's like, okay, so you could just drive out to a forest, look for a pine tree. It's like, that's one way to get a tree. So they're literally just walking through the forest, and they find the tree. And it's like, how's that gonna, that can't even fit in our yard. It's like, nope, that's fitting in our living room. And Clark can't even talk here. He like gets a lisp from how cold it is. Or I don't know if this was an error and that Chevy Chase actually like got a lisp when he was filming this and it was just left in the film. Because I've seen some films where there's like, oh, this specific scene was an error, but they left it in the movie just for laughs. I think a lot of Jim Carrey films have that. So then Russ asks Clark if he brought a saw, and I'm guessing he didn't because it literally cuts to the next scene where they're just driving home with the tree on top of the car with the roots pulled. And they don't even show how they got the tree out. I've even checked to see if there's a deleted scene that shows how they get out the tree. Like if there was like a winch in the back of the station wagon, because there obviously was not one on the front. Or if, yeah, I've checked everywhere. There are no deleted. I don't think there are any deleted scenes, or even if there is, I just haven't found it yet. So anyway, when they get home, the neighbors, Todd Chester and Margot Chester, come home, they see Clark wearing a Jason Voorhees mask about to cut off the edge of the tree. Which he does, and you have to see how enormous this thing is in the living room. When Clark goes to trim it, he breaks a few windows. And CinemaSins actually did a what's the damage on this movie, and that their total was about $6,000 or 6,000 something dollars. It's like, wow, you trashed a fence and a window, and then Clark apparently didn't wash the sap off his hands, or maybe he tried, but just sap was just way too sticky with just basic hand soap, and his hands start sticking everything. When Ellen says that her parents are also coming for Christmas alongside Clark, so it's like, oh god, everyone's... And then Clark's hands start sticking to, like, Helen's hair, which he pulls. Even the bedside light gets stuck to his hand. It's like, you really gotta wash that sap off your hands. Or maybe if I were to, like... It's funny, it's like... That's actually kind of funny. It's like, well... But then we cut to, Clark at work with this guy, Bill. I don't know the name of the person who does Bill, but... They're talking, and Clark actually works for a place where he gets Christmas bonuses, and he's thinking, I'm going to put a pool in my backyard with my bonus. And then that's when the boss, Frank Shirley, played by Brian Doyle Murray. Unfortunately, he does not he spells it Brian with an I, unlike Bryan Cranston, who spells it with a Y. But anyway, they're talking. He's like, are you putting in that non-cereal varnish? And he says, do you want to have it at the end of the day? And then the inside bullshit jargon that nobody understands. He literally says that. Word for word. So then... we cut to Clark at the mall. Or he's at some sort of store. I don't know if it was actually a mall, but he was at like I think it was like a clothing store. He can't even talk to the person working the cash register, who is a woman for the record. He's like, maybe you should cut back on the drugs or the alcohol. It's like, and for some reason, Russ shows up. He's like, can't see the line. Can you, Russ? He's like, nope. And then Clark's like, wait, how the fuck did he get here? So then that's when Clark and Ellen's parents arrive at their house in the next scene. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't have a girlfriend, so I wouldn't know how our parents would get along if we did something like this. Like, maybe I'd go to, like, her parents for Christmas, and sometimes she comes to mine if I had a girlfriend, but I don't know. So then Clark decides to decorate his house. He gets, like, a shit ton of lights and brings Russ with him. And he literally starts using a stapler. And even while he's sitting up the ladder, Todd and Margot are going for a walk, and Margot's like, I hope he falls and breaks his neck, but then Todd says, I'm pretty sure he's going to fall, but I don't think we're lucky enough to have him break his neck. It's like, I haven't seen the other National Lampoon movies, like Vegas Vacation or European Vacation, and so I don't know if Todd and Margot were also in those as well. Although Clark does technically fall off. No, he doesn't actually, like, literally fall off the ladder. It just slides down. It's like, did he not latch it before he went up? You know, nowadays we have projectors. But this was obviously 1989, so this was the 80s, so I don't think they had those, like, projectors we have today where you just plop it in your yard and then it displays an image on the front of your house. I tried that one time. My parents bought, like, one with snowflakes, but unfortunately they put it too close to the ground and the snow kept fucking it up. So, yeah, either way, the grandparents are asleep watching TV. It's like a Santa Claus parade. And also Clark is using a staple gun. It's like, I can only imagine how much of a pain that was to take the lights down once Christmas had ended. He even staples his jacket and the sleeve rips off. And gets stuck on a tree. Audrey is not happy. She's talking with Ellen. She wants the grandparents to stay in, like, a hotel or something, which maybe... Well, I did go to visit my cousin for Christmas. This isn't the one that lives in Brunswick. This cousin also lives in Ontario with me. We went up there. He lives about like 3 or 4. He lived about 3 or 4 hours at a time, and we stayed in a hotel that was like 10 minutes walking distance from where he lived. So, yeah. And Ellen tries to smoke, but apparently her mom, I think, is Frances her mom? I don't know. I just know the grandparents' names. I keep forgetting whose parents is who. But apparently she has, like, fucking cameras, or maybe she could smell it. Well, I don't know. My sense of smell has been fucked for years, so I wouldn't be able to smell people smoking. And it's already night out. It's like, wait, Clark was putting the lights on the house all day, and he's now on the roof. Now, I don't know how you would get lights on the roof, and that's when Russ comes out with the reindeer. It's like, wow, people are lazy. They always ask for more time than they actually need. I don't think it would take that long to put lights on a house if you were State Point. Or maybe projectors would take less time. And Clark even falls off the roof, but he manages to grab the eaves trough. But he tries to sidle along the edge. The eaves trough breaks and sends an ice chunk flying right into Todd and Margot's house. It even ends up breaking their stereo too. And I'm guessing the ice melted by the time they found out. Because obviously Todd is like, something had to break the window and hit the stereo. It's also really funny when Margot asks, why is the carpet all wet, Todd? And then Todd responds with, I don't know, Margot. Actually, that is kind of funny. It's like, yeah, maybe try to pull off a big family Christmas without pissing your neighbors off too much. And, yeah, if you piss off your neighbors, it will eventually come to bite you in the ass. Which you'll see later in the film. So Clark tries to light all the lights, but nothing happens. Everyone goes to bed because they want to just get some sleep. And also, why the hell is the moon so big in the shot? And problem is all the grandparents claimed all the bedrooms, so Russ and Audrey had to share a bed. It's like, oh, once I even, like, considered having, like, a big party where I would have, like, friends from middle school and high school over and have them sleep in silly places. Like, when people would be sleeping out, people would be sleeping outside. This would be, like, during the summer, too. Like, outside, on the roof, in the basement, on the kitchen table. And, yeah, but then the next day, Clark heads into his attic, but unfortunately, Frances... Okay, I think Frances is actually Ellen's mom. She traps him in there like as opposed to just... No, just... It's like, check the attic first before you close it, retard. So Clark is trapped in there, and also, how the fuck can he get it open from his side? I don't know how attic stuff works. I don't have an actual attic in my house. Well, I kind of have one, but it's literally in my upstairs bathroom, and we don't actually use it. There's no ladder. You'd have to climb on the sink to get up there, which I only plan on using that in case if there's an emergency, like if somebody breaks into my house. But then everyone leaves to go, like, shopping and stuff. And Ellen's determined to get Clark, but the grandparents are just like, no. And we get some whiplash of Clark being just tortured. I mean, I don't know if it's like a tortured, first he gets hit with floorboards, he puts on a coat, falls to the floor. Well, he doesn't actually fall to the floor all the way. He only lands on the top bunk of a bunk bed that had like a woman poster on top of it. It's like, yeah, this whole this would only happen to people who actually have attics in their houses. So then he just starts watching some old footage of his past Christmases from when he was little. That is until Ellen comes home and opens the attic, sets Clark free. So then that night, Clark gives the lights another attempt. And he's like, maybe all the cords are not plugged in. Actually, that was Ellen who told him, did you use more than one cord? So he goes to check. And it turns out he did actually use more than one cord, because did you see all those lights there? He would definitely need more than one cord for that. And here's where it was going wrong. Apparently, the lights only work if the light to the garage is on. It took me a while to recognize what that room was, but then I eventually realized, oh, it's their garage. And we get some slapstick with the lights blinding Todd and Margot as they're celebrating too, which they end up trashing their whole bedroom. That literally happened. First attempt, Ellen only saw it, but she left. Clark was busy, like, fixing the cords. He went in, plugged it in, lights turned on, then they turned off, and then he just did... And then Clark just goes into a rage where he destroys the Santa that he put up. Even though it was Ellen who turned off the lights the second time. And then he turns them back on. It's like... Here's one thing I always wondered. Did Ellen hear Clark raging out there from the lights, and then that's when she decided to turn them back on? Or was it just sheer coincidence? So Clark is busy thanking everyone. Thanking everyone for coming. This is like... Yeah, because Clark was starting to really get grouchy here, because he wanted to have the lights on, and then as he's thanking everyone, that's when... his cousin Eddie Johnson, voiced by Randy Quaid. I mean, played by Randy Quaid, because this is a live-action film. That's live-action stuff where they play them. It's animation where they voice characters. And his wife, Catherine, played by Miriam Flynn, I think. And their kids, Ruby, Sue, and Rocky, which Ruby, Sue, and Rocky were probably staying in Kansas in the second Christmas Vacation, because it said that there were kids staying in Kansas. And their dog Snots the Rottweiler. Eddie just surprised them with their RV. It's like, wow, that's kind of an unexpected visit. Actually, even if I was, like, visited from, like, my cousin who I haven't seen in a while, like, even the cousins that live in Ontario or the one that lives in New Brunswick, I actually would kind of like that if they just surprised me by just showing up. It's like, holy fuck, you're here. Nice. I would totally love that. It's like, yeah. It's really starting to compel Clark's character in a bit, but then we get to the inside where Clark and Eddie are talking, and it shows the tree. And it's also really funny when Clark just spits out his eggnog when Eddie tells him, don't fall with my RV because I'm taking it with me next month when I leave. So then we cut to Clark delivering a present to Mr. Shirley, who's on the phone. And what was even... It doesn't even reveal what was in those... in all the presents, because they all had the exact same shape, just different color wrapping paper. It's like, I don't know if that was lazy. I mean, it is kind of lazy. I mean, I don't know if it's lazy or what. So then they all go to a hill where they put, like, this lubricant on a sled. These, like, tinfoil sheets that was, like, super slippery. And Eddie says that he didn't want to go because he had to replace the metal plate in his head with a plastic one. Because I even was questioning that when I watched the second Christmas Vacation for the first time. Because it shows, like, the metal plate being a bug zapper. And I was like, wait a minute, didn't he get that replaced with a plastic one? But then, this part is kind of hilarious. Clark decides to give it a test run. He goes all the way to Walmart. Wow. And then, cut to another day where Clark is talking with Bill, saying it's his last day, about getting the pool, and asks Bill if he got his bonus. It's like, Clark really wants to get that bonus. Wow. It's like, yeah, Clark is actually kind of starting to turn a little bit of a Grinch when you think about it. But then when Clark gets home, he's busy daydreaming, imagining where the pool would be. And then we get hit with some filler of strip. This joke involves stripping, by the way. Where a hot girl just shows up on his diving board until Ruby Sue interrupts him and they talk for a bit. And Clark is determined to prove that Santa Claus is real. Well, to them. And even saying he can't afford to be an elf. Which is like, dude, you're too tall to be an elf. It's like, that scene really shows how Clark is determined to pull off the family Christmas he always wanted. And then we cut to the next morning where there's just chaos at the breakfast table, and then He's talking with Ellen, and they're watching Eddie empty his shitter, or loo, as the family-friendly term is called, into the sewer. And we even see Todd about to go for a run, but when he sees Eddie, he's like, oh, hell no, and he just runs back in the house. That scene was kind of funny. But then after Clark and Ellen are done talking, Clark takes Eddie to Walmart, where Eddie's just randomly throwing everything into the cart, which even ends up crushing like a light bulb and some other stuff that Clark put in while Eddie wasn't looking. And the Walmart there seemed normal, so with it being the 1980s, I don't know if Walmart was quite the store it is today, with all the crazy people there. Or technically, that is kind of a definition of crazy people. And Eddie even points out the fact that he actually lives in the RV because he had to sell his farm. So then finally, it's Christmas Eve. Clark's Aunt Bethany shows up with Uncle Lewis. Or actually, I keep forgetting. Is Aunt Bethany from Clark's side or Ellen's side? Or Helen's side? I keep getting Ellen and Helen mixed up, jeez. And we even get like a gag of Uncle Lewis getting his hair ripped off by his hat. And there's no blood because it's a wig. I always keep thinking of that scene from Saw where that scalloping scene where it pulls the hair and there's just like a shit ton of blood there. Plus you could make the argument that was real hair in Saw, but here it was a wig. But then Francis and Catherine take Aunt Bethany and Uncle Lewis in the living room, and then the presents. The presents were just, like, really cheap, because... No, apparently she even wrapped up her cat and some Jell-O mold. Apparently because she's broke as fuck, and she just takes stuff from around her house, wraps it up, gives it away as a present. So then they're having Christmas dinner, and, the turkey explodes. Well... It was just dry on the inside is all. And Aunt Bethany ends up singing the Star Spangled Banner as a prayer. It's like, dude, just use a typical regular prayer. Like they say in the Fast and Furious films. So while they're eating, Snots ends up nosing into the trash, and they open up Aunt Bethany's cat, who starts chewing the Christmas lights. And every time Snots goes through the garbage, it's like, that is so my dog's. One time my dog actually, I wasn't even home to witness this, but one time she actually climbed into the garbage bin because my dog is not a big Rottweiler. She's like a freaking she's a Maltese cross. Maltese cross with a Yorkshire Terrier, so a Morkie. So that's how she was small enough to fit in the garbage bin. I didn't see the rest of it, but my parents just showed me the aftermath of it, where apparently she wouldn't even look at them. So then Uncle Lewis asks Clark to go into the living room to get his stogie, and Clark is like, I'm gonna kill this motherfucker if he continues it, and Ellen's like, dude, it's probably gonna be his last Christmas. And Clark even says, if he keeps up, it will be his last Christmas. So Clark goes to the living room, grabs the stogie, and then the lights turn off. Well, it's because the cat unplugged the tree, and then Clark plugs the lights back in, and the cat gets fried. This is the main reason. It's like, when I first saw this, it was like, yo, that's the only reason I get a cat, so I can fry it every Christmas. Yeah, fuck cats. And I know, there's probably going to be a bunch of comments saying, Liam, you can't just buy a cat to kill it, that's animal cruelty. It's like, well, plus yeah. Whatever, I can do what I want. Actually, I probably would not just buy a cat and fry it, that'd be kind of heartless. So then the chair also got burned from the cat being fried, so Clark and Eddie have to take it out to the curb, alongside the trash reindeer, and there's like a smell coming from the sewer. Probably from the shitter that Eddie dumped in there earlier. And during dinner, more crazy stuff starts happening. Like, then the cat, I mean, actually, the tree gets burned from Uncle Lewis smoking. It's like, yeah, that's why I don't want to allow smoking in my house. Because I actually wouldn't want my place to smell like a marijuana greenhouse. Or, I know it was just a cigar, but anything, whether it be cigars, drugs, anything smokable. So they have to throw the tree out, and then that's when Clark's bonus arrives, and the knocker gets ripped off from Clark opening the door. He takes the envelope, opens it, and he goes absolutely bananas over it after realizing it's not his bonus, but rather invitation to a jelly club. Imagine if it were a blank check. He could have just filled in $1 million on it. And then Clark just goes berserk. It's like, I want my boss Frank Shorey brought here with a big ribbon on his head so I can look him in the eye and tell him what a big, fat... Yeah, I can't even memorize all the words that Clark said. And then he just ends by saying, "Where's the Tylenol?" And Eddie literally takes this request in the hand and he drives off in the RV. It's like, dude, I think Clark was just pissed here and didn't actually mean go kidnap Mr. Shirley. So Clark cuts down a replacement tree, which ends up breaking a window on Todd and Margot's house. Because Todd and Margot were even asking. Because Margot asks, are you a little bit sad we didn't get a tree? Because they're kind of corny and cliche. And then Todd asks, where would you find a tree at this hour on Christmas Eve? And then that's when the tree smashed their window. You could have just done that. So then Clark washes the soap, and of course he's going bananas. He's already started to go berserk. He's like, Dad did not want this Christmas tree. And then he chainsaws the newel post off. The tree's redecorated. They're putting presents. And then a squirrel was apparently in the tree when Clark brought it in the house. And then everyone just goes bananas. Because they're scared of squirrels. Yeah. There was a squirrel in the tree because of course there was. So then... everyone's still panicking. Clark even gets the squirrel on him when he tries to catch it, and Lisa Snot's chasing the squirrel all over the place, and Clark's like, actually, I could get it out of here, as opposed to catching it in my coat and smacking it with a hammer. That's what he originally intended, but everyone didn't like that idea, so he decided to just have Snots chase it out of the house. And Margot was pissed, because with Clark breaking his window, he was like, you know what, I am going to go over that house and slap that cunt for destroying my window. And, well, first she talks Todd into doing it, but Todd's like, no, I'm not gonna go over there and just attack somebody. And that was probably a mistake on Margot's part, because she was at the door when Clark she's at the door when Clark opens it to get the squirrel out, and then Snots ambushes her. No, first the squirrel lands on her, and then that's when Snots just comes out and just shreds her. She survives, by the way, in case you were wondering. And of course Clark is just angry. It's like, oh my god, now this house is trash. How am I supposed to pull this off? And Ellen's trying to get all the grandparents out because Clark has just gone, like, maximum rage mode at this point. It's like, yeah, it's like, pulling off a big family Christmas isn't going to be easy. There's got to be stuff that's going to happen. So then Clark decides, you know what, I'm just going to read Twas the Night Before Christmas, everyone, to calm myself. He's reading the book, but then that's when Eddie returns with Mr. Shirley, and while Clark's reading, with twigs on their heads, jelly, and why is Eddie bringing in a guy in his pajamas and a robe and handcuffs? So then Mr. Shirley's wife, Ellen, calls the cops, and Clark is briefly fired, but then Eddie tries to talk Mr. Shirley out of it, and then Clark's like, no, that was wrong of me what I said. And he reveals that, and then eventually after some talking, because Clark was counting on as part of his salary, Mr. Shirley is like, you know what, that was wrong of me to cut out all the bonuses. Whatever you got last year, I'll give you 20% of. Except the film doesn't reveal what Clark got the previous year. And then, I don't know what, these look like regular cop cars that pull up the house, but it says both on both here a SWAT team, and the Wikipedia synopsis describes it as a SWAT team too. So I don't know if those are regular cops. They look like regular cops because they had like regular cop cars, not like those giant SWAT vans. I said noose because that's what it's called. That's what they're called in Grand Theft Auto. Noose. They show up, They show up and pretty much already like arrest everybody. And also, Frank's wife Ellen comes and Frank says, "I'm not going to press any charges against anybody. I did something I should have, and Clark called me out on it." So then, what's so funny? Everyone goes outside to watch the Christmas Star, and Uncle Lewis blows up the sewer because he dropped a match right near it. It's actually kind of funny. Even the SWAT team is singing along with them and celebrating their Christmas. And Ellen just heads back inside to join them, and Clark is just sitting there watching, saying that he did it. Even though it was a bit rough, he pulled off a family Christmas. And also, when the credits start rolling, you can actually see Snots just sitting next to Clark. And it makes me wonder, where was Snots before, in between when he attacked Margot and this scene? Was he just sitting outside on the porch? What happened? But yeah, that's pretty much an ultimate family Christmas film. And there's a lot of stuff you can learn from this. Don't go psycho bonkers like Clark did. Because him admitting that he should not have said, "Kidnap this bastard for not giving me my Christmas bonus." Yeah, don't do that. If you don't get... It's because he was pretty much probably already pissed about his tree getting burned, and Uncle Lewis probably driving him nuts, so maybe that's why he started turning into a Grinch over all that. But overall, this film is really great, and the way the grandparents are portrayed is just like grumpy old men. Is that a film, Grumpy Old Men? I don't know who's in that. Where basically just stereotypes grumpy grandparents, and it was similar to a tradition that I did where I would like go to a Christmas Eve service on Christmas Eve and I'd visit my aunt and uncle afterwards. But obviously, their landlord sold the house and my uncle passed away when COVID started, so we don't do that anymore. And my aunt is currently in an old folks home and has dementia. But it was fun, but I don't think there was any like crazy old grumpy people there. And Christmas Day, we always tried to have Christmas Day was when we had our big Christmas dinner. Not Christmas Eve. Because it's actually a little more efficient then. But, yeah, that's why this film is really funny, shows consequences of what could happen if you try to pull it off the way you want it and it doesn't go and you go psycho bonkers. There's going to be some improvisations. But, yeah. That's basically... And also, do not torment your neighbors. Really explains why you should not be tormenting your neighbors, because they're going to get pissed at you. But, yeah, also there was, like, this little image here on this image there. I think this image wasn't in the final movie, so I'm guessing it must have been a deleted scene. Obviously, that image there was when Clark was locked in the attic. And, yeah. So, yeah, those are my top 3 favorite Christmas movies. We got Elf, then Arthur Christmas, then National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Which, I really like these films. I revisit them every year. And watch them more than all the other films. Like multiple times, not just once, like some other good Christmas films I try to get in at least once a year, unless it's like family or something, but... Yeah, that's... pretty much it for this breakdown. Really shows like how, and basically how you have to improvise when you have both sides of the family over. But yeah, either way, that's it. So please like, comment, share, sub, and peace.